This is Jeff from Studio 41 Gaming, and we're back with another episode of the 41 Show. And this time we aren't really talking about a specific game, but actually a game developer and also publisher. And inadvertently, this might end up being like the shortest episode of the 41 Show I'm going to do, because as I was putting this through my head, it was like, alright, this is going to be a pretty good episode. I think it'll be pretty long, but when I started writing down the notes and whatnot, I was like, oh wait, this might actually not be very long. But it's still a topic that I really have been wanting to talk about. So let's try to put aside all the political BS that's going through my mind right now, and that's going on in the past couple of days. So let's get to it. Square-Enix and how absolutely clueless they have been over the past few years in regards to their Western audience and Western studios, controlled studios, I should say. So, as always, if you are watching this live, feel free to, well, listening to this live might be a better way of putting it. Feel free to always add in what you're thinking in the comments, and in the live chat, I'm always watching it, so feel free to chime in. That's basically all there is to it. You know how these go. So, to start, the big four evil publishers that I think a lot of people really are, they really identify with. Actually, it's more or less the big three. But the big three are Activision, EA, and Ubisoft. And Square Enix, while typically they aren't held to that regard, I really think they are getting there with their showing of the past few years. Capcom last generation probably would have been up there with Activision, EA, and Ubisoft, but they're like so hilariously, just so obviously evil. It just always comes back to bite them in the ass. They always do something, at least last generation, they were always up to something, but everyone just saw right through it. It always came back to backfire on him. They're the comically just hilarious bad guy. He's just sitting there twirling his mustache, just so obviously evil that everyone always knows to think ahead, and they just end up screwing him over. But Square Enix, I think, is definitely getting to that level, and it really, the most notable screw up of the past a few years is definitely Deus Ex Mankind Divided, but I think they really got the ball rolling with their reboot of Thief. They are in control of, or at least, I don't know if they technically own them, but their Eidos Montreal works essentially for Square Enix. And they made a terrible reboot of the Thief franchise. Crystal Dynamics is owned by Square Enix, and I really think, kneecapped Rise of the Tomb Raider by making it timed exclusive for Xbox. I don't even think Rise of the Tomb Raider personally is as good as the first, as the Tomb Raider reboot, but that's a topic for another time that I know I'm in the minority in thinking that. But I really think Rise of the Tomb Raider, it sold like shit when it first came out. And it's really because Tomb Raider was always a PlayStation first kind of franchise. So making an Xbox exclusive, or at least a timed exclusive, Rise of the Tomb Raider was, just did not make any sense. I think that really, it put Tomb Raider towards an audience that's really indifferent on Tomb Raider. Tomb Raider fans are probably going to be on PlayStation because of Tomb Raider's history. And then we get to the belle of the ball that is the absolute goat fucking of Deus Ex Mankind Divided. Square Enix, they put that game out to die. The god awful trailer they did where you could augment your pre-order with the different pre-order tiers you could choose your pre-order bonus. I think one was you could choose like a different gun, then you could choose like a different quest, or you could choose if once enough pre-orders were gained, the final tier was unlocked, or they released the game on a Friday, the Friday ahead of the Tuesday, which is, oh my god. I remember the perfect summing up of what this meant to people. I remember it was an IGN comment, and that's like the only reason I even go to that site is for the comments. It was someone said, "Please don't do this to Deus Ex. Do this shit to Call of Duty. Don't do it to Deus Ex, a franchise people actually care about." And that sums it up absolutely perfectly. Deus Ex is one of the most revolutionary game franchises in existence, if not the most revolutionary game franchise in existence. So why the fuck would you do this to Deus Ex? And not to mention the sequel to probably one of the best games of last generation, Human Revolution. So that game, obviously the blowback was enormous. The like to dislike ratio on that video on YouTube was really, really bad. It was like, I don't think you could see the likes. So Square Enix obviously rolled that back. Then, of course, the game got delayed, and we got microtransactions anyway. And the loneliest breach mode of all time. The loneliest. I don't know if you. I've never touched breach mode in Mankind Divided. I don't even know if it's a multiplayer version or what. But that game was kneecapped from the start with the horrible hype around the pre-order tiers, and then of course you had the All Lives Matters thing that probably didn't help anyway, but that was just a really stupid complaint from some really stupid people anyway. So of course it came down a month or so ago that Deus Ex was put on hold. I really, really want to see how this story ends, and they fucking put that franchise on hold. God damn it, we better see how Adam Jensen's story ends, because if this never, like, if we go 3 or 4 years down the line and we don't get the end of this story, we're going to totally have an IO Interactive on our hands, and that is really what should happen. And we'll get to that in a second. But Deus Ex is on hold, and Eidos Montreal is working with Crystal Dynamics on an Avengers game. This is fucking Eidos Montreal. Eidos was one of the most. They innovated like more than just about any other game company back in the late 90s, early 2000s, and now they're reduced to working on an Avengers game. That is going to. I really, really hope that like not the entire staff leaves Eidos Montreal, because these are full of people who say we want to work on Deus freaking X or Thief or insert another revolutionary franchise Eidos owns here. And now we're working on an Avengers game. These guys are all going to want to leave and go join Warren Spector and work on System Shock 3. So I really hope that the whole staff doesn't leave, because I really want them to get a crack at Deus Ex 3, or I guess it would technically be like 5, so whatever, you get the point. But IO Interactive then was the recent goat fuck of the century of Square Enix, because Hitman, of course, was a episodic release. Why they would do that for the Hitman franchise, I will never understand. But Hitman Season 1, I think, finally came out all collected late last year, early this year. And IO Interactive, I think, was... I don't think they liked doing that, but the Hitman franchise was... I think Season 2 was really up in the air. So IO Interactive bought themselves or something to get away from Square Enix. They were somehow able to negotiate Square Enix to release the Hitman franchise. So IO Interactive is essentially an independent developer right now, and they did get the Hitman franchise, Hitman name with them. So they probably won't get like money from season one now, but they've got the rights to make future Hitman games. So that's what's really, I think, really important. But what I was saying about Eidos was, if we don't get another freaking Deus Ex game in a few years after their Avengers, whatever the hell comes out, we really, I am really going to want Eidos to say, fuck you, Square Enix, give us Deus Ex, we're out. And if they could get Thief 2, God love them, go for it. But I really would want them to do that if we don't get a Deus Ex game rather soon after the Avengers game. Because Deus Ex is still way too big of a name and means way too much to people for us to not get a fitting conclusion to one of the best modern trilogies we're ever going to see. So I've been wondering just why Square Enix is doing all this shit. And I've honestly been wondering if it's something just when they merged with Enix, when Square merged with Enix after the Final Fantasy movie bankrupted the entire fucking studio. How just it just doesn't make any sense, because Squaresoft back in the late 90s and early 2000s before the merger was on these just on an absolute tear. The guys could not miss, it seemed. Every game they made sold a ton and was innovative and revolutionary and a cult hit or a mainstream hit. But then they merged with Enix, and since then they seem to be hit and miss. They'll make Final Fantasy X, and then actually I think Final Fantasy X might have still been Squaresoft, but they made 10 too, and that game was freaking wackadoodle. Final Fantasy 12 is one of the most loved and also hated games in the franchise. Granted, I don't know all the Square Enix early to mid 2000 games off the top of my head, so bear with me. I'm thinking of the big polarizing ones, like the Kingdom Hearts franchise getting milked to death on different consoles that just made no sense whatsoever. It seems like they've made some weird decisions since the merger with Enix. And Enix, I think, I don't know if they were in financial trouble in the early 2000s that caused them to want the merge, but it seemed like they were probably making some questionable decisions as well, which probably is why we're having the stupid decisions of today. Maybe the Enix people are just out of their minds or something. I don't know. I'm just trying to think why they're screwing things up so bad, because it just seems like they're out of touch with their Western audiences as of recent. I mean, they did things at Deus Ex. There's no way in hell they would ever do what they did with Deus Ex to one of their big franchises. They would never do a pre-order tier system, augment your loadout, whatever the fuck it was. They would never do that to Final Fantasy. Never in a million goddamn years. So, I honestly think they view their Western studios and Western franchises almost as guinea pigs. They throw shit at them, see if it works. It always happens to be bad ideas, though, and they end up screwing themselves and making them look bad. So, the only thing they've done to their Western franchises is the season episodic release of Hitman that they're apparently going to do the Final Fantasy VII remake. That one doesn't make any sense either, so maybe they just are that stupid. I don't know. But Final Fantasy 15 didn't have microtransactions. Nier Automata, or whatever the hell you pronounce it, didn't have microtransactions. So, what the hell are they doing? Why are they doing this to the Western studios, the Western franchises, and not doing it to their own. It just it just seems like they either are completely out of touch and have no idea how to market to Western audiences, or they just generally don't care. They are seeing them as just money mills or something and try and exploit their audiences for money, which, given what Capcom did or tried to do last gen, wouldn't surprise me. We've seen a Japanese studio, big company try and do this kind of crap before, so it wouldn't shock me at all if they tried this crap. The only Western game they released recently that didn't have some stupid marketing or stupid appeal to it that they tried to do was Just Cause 3. Just Cause 3 was released and it's had DLC and that's it. Nothing. Nothing at all. Wasn't a timed exclusive. Wasn't pre-ordered, augmented that entire crap with Deus Ex. Didn't have microtransactions. Wasn't a complete pile like Thief. It just had really crappy performance issues on console. Just Cause 3 is the only Avalanche is really the only Western audience or the Western developer that Square Enix hasn't completely fucked over in some way, shape, or form. So that's the Square. I don't get what Square Enix is doing nowadays. I don't get it. That's basically all I've got. They just have no idea what they're doing with Deus Ex, what they're doing with Thief movie. Are you fucking kidding me? That better be based off of an old Thief game and not Thief 4. And then with Tomb Raider, I don't even know if they're making a third, if Crystal Dynamics is making a third Tomb Raider game, since I think they're helping Eidos with the Avengers game. So we don't even know if we're getting a third new Tomb Raider game. It's going to be the 75th reboot of the fucking Tomb Raider franchise, knowing them. But that's Square Enix. They have no clue what they're doing with their Western audiences and Western studios and games. I really, really, really hope they don't bungle Deus Ex more than they already have. So, thanks for listening and thanks for watching. And fuck Square Enix for what they did with Deus Ex.